All right, let's get into our first topic now. And we're asking, is it wrong for Prince William to wade in on the war in Gaza? Get your calls in for this now. The Prince of Wales has said that he wants to see an end to the fighting as soon as possible in a major intervention on the Israel-Gaza conflict. The statement was issued after it emerged that Prince William is set to carry out a series of engagements to highlight the plight of all those affected by the ongoing crisis in the Middle East. But some have hit out at the statement, suggesting that it is unwise for him to get involved in such matters. So is he right to speak out on the conflict, or should actually the royal family just stay clear of things like this? Albie, what's your thoughts?
I think the Prince of Wales, Prince William, has made a mistake on this. I don't think it is appropriate for the future king to be commenting on what is a very contentious conflict. I think if he wanted to issue a statement about all people around the world who are suffering from war at the moment, whether or not that's in Gaza and Israel, whether or not that is in Yemen, whether or not that is in Sudan, Ukraine, I think that's fine. But I think to specifically highlight what is going on in Israel and Gaza as the future king of this country, a position which is meant to be above politics, above international relations, I think is totally wrong.
Let's take a look at the statement in full. So the Prince of Wales said, "I, like so many others, want to see an end to the fighting as soon as possible. There is a desperate need for increased humanitarian support to Gaza. It's critical that aid gets in and the hostages are released." It goes on to say sometimes it's only when faced with the sheer scale of human suffering that the importance of permanent peace is brought home. Even in the darkest hour, we must not succumb to the counsel of despair. What do you think about that statement, Nina?
Well, I think he expresses what so many of us feel if we watch the news. I mean, I sat through the 10 o'clock news last night and just wept. There were scenes from the NASA hospital, which is basically not functioning. It's dark, it's got nothing, and the patients... and there's a little girl on there who, you know, it just actually breaks your heart. First of all, let's say in this discussion that there's a great difference between Jewish people, the Israeli state, and Netanyahu's government. So let's make that distinction before we talk any further. For Prince William to speak out like this is not something that he will have done himself off his own bat. He will have been encouraged to do this.
You think so?
No, no way. There's absolutely no way. I would have thought that this will have come from the government, and if not, then further afield than that. Because at the moment, the whole world is watching what is happening there. And it is, I mean, nearly 30,000 people killed, up to 20,000 children. Children made homeless, children starving, malnutrition, disease rife. It is a situation. In decades to come, people will look back and say, how could the world let this happen? But wait a minute, I haven't finished yet. And even Biden, even America, which is who are Israelis' staunchest supporters, is only now beginning to talk about a bit of a ceasefire. But they want it, and they have to say what they say publicly. But maybe they're saying, well, look, above politics, here is somebody we can use. They have, you know, and the royal family have always had huge ties to the Middle East.
I should just mention here, just in case anyone's wondering what's going on, they're seeing images, the latest images really of Gaza, and children are being measured because there's malnutrition is rife now. Let's just speak to our royal commentator, Daisy McAndrew. Daisy, what do you make of William's intervention on this? Do you think it's the right time for him to speak out? It's unusual for the royal family to talk out in these sorts of matters.
Yes, it's very unusual, which is what makes it very powerful and significant. And I totally understand Albie saying that he's concerned that it's too contentious. It's definitely something that William and his advisors will have thought long and hard about. I completely agree with Nina that this will have, well, we know that this went through the Foreign Office and that Downing Street knew about it. I can't say that the idea was Downing Street's or the Foreign Office's, but they definitely were kept in the loop about the fact that this statement was going to be very strong. It was also very, very carefully worded. You know, it didn't say ceasefire now. It did make clear that the hostages had to be released, but it was more emotional than that. It was saying that this is a man, Prince William, who cares very deeply. He was the first royal to make an official visit to the West Bank. He has had meetings in 2018 with Netanyahu. He is pretty knowledgeable, and he does care about the issue. But as you were saying, royals don't often tread into politics. We know that constitutionally they're not allowed to. So if they do veer into that territory, they have to be extremely careful. Probably the most iconic moment when we've seen that in the past was Princess Diana and her landmine campaign, where it was John Major's government, Conservative government at the time. Princess Diana became passionate about wanting to see a worldwide ban. You can see her there wanting to see a worldwide ban of landmines. John Major was holding out and said that no, he wanted all the other countries to sign it before he would sign an international ban on landmines. Princess Diana actually called the government's policy on landmines hopeless. She said that landmines were a plague on earth. And of course, in the end, she did get her desire to see the British government signing the Ottawa Treaty, but she didn't see it in person. They signed it 3 months after her death. But that was an incredible lobbying movement from a royal who wasn't meant to get involved in politics.
But I suppose that wasn't about a specific conflict. This is about a very specific conflict. But actually, Prince William speaks about a loss of life, and there has been loss of lives on both sides in this conflict. So perhaps he is tread a very thought through line on this. Les from South Yorkshire, sorry Daisy, stay with us, we're going to go to the phone lines now. Les from South Yorkshire, you're up first. What do you think about Prince William's statement? Do you think it was right for him to speak out on this now?
Yeah, I think he did right. I mean, I was saying to your receptionist or
researcher.
Yeah, I was saying, if you look back at First World War, there were King George, there were the Wilhelm, German king, and the Russian king. They were all cousins of Queen Victoria, or related to Queen Victoria. Now, if they'd have spoke up back then, would so many people have got slaughtered just for, well, we still don't know what we would for, do we?
Les, you've lost me a little bit in the history, but I hear what you're saying, that there are times where actually you think the royals should have spoken out in history and we might have seen a very different outcome, and actually maybe this is a good thing. Do you think, well, I mean, Israel has, I suppose, thanked William for his words about the deaths in Israel and, you know, the hostages, but hasn't really commented on or criticised his comment in full?
We're supposed to learn from this film, aren't we? And what all Israel's learned is how to ram people up into a corner of the country and just slaughter them.
Well, I mean, Israel will say that they are allowed to defend their country. They were attacked on the 7th of October. They had over 1,000 people die on one day, and they are allowed to do that. But, you know, now there are calls internationally for a ceasefire. But this is about...
No, there's defence and then there's mass slaughter in there, and this is borderline.
I mean, that's your view, but we're talking about William's comments just now and whether it's appropriate for the royals. You can say what you like about the conflict, Les, but, you know, Prince William is a future king. Is it appropriate for him to wade in it?
Yeah, the lady on previously were just saying that he's worded it very carefully. He's probably seeing the same. You know, they're just, kids are getting slaughtered and innocent women getting slaughtered, hospitals are getting bashed. So, yeah, there's certain points when people need to speak up in there.
Les, thank you very much for your call. Nigel from Warwickshire, what's your thoughts on William's comments?
Well, it's out of place, really, because he hasn't said anything about the Ukraine war, and that's been going on for 2 years now. And I think that basically everyone's all over the place with this, and what we're missing, I know Albie will disagree with me, is we're missing with the sage comments of Boris on this, who could advise Prince William. I mean, we've got idiots like Starmer and Sunak. We've got no great people at the moment making the right statements on the world stage. We're missing Boris. But Prince William shouldn't be talking like this. He should be outside politics. I mean, why is
I'm confused, Nigel, because you've said two things here. First of all, so I've got you absolutely right, you're saying that Prince William needs someone like Boris to be advising him on what to say publicly, and secondly, that he shouldn't actually be saying anything publicly, politically at all.
Yeah, because Boris would caution him to be careful on this. Boris would be the right leader. You've got idiots like Starmer and Sunak all over the place on this. As I say, why don't people say, let Egypt give safe passage to these innocent people? Because you can't have people like Hamas murdering and destroying people's lives and actually doing awful things to pregnant women, which we know all about.
Well,
I mean,
hold on. Okay, Nigel, there's accusations on both sides and things. So I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of who you think is right and wrong. That's not what this is about. What this is about are the rights and wrongs of war. But what this is about is whether the royals should be making comments on what is happening in Gaza.
Well, then these accusations make it clear that he should not be treading on such issues. That's the point, isn't it?
Okay, Nina, interesting. Boris should come in and advise Prince William. That would be better.
Boris has never been cautious in his life about anything, and certainly not even public statements. Boris would be the last person to advise. And I think the difference between this and the Ukraine war is that it appears to have gone beyond what we think of as normal conflict, which is repugnant anyway and gruesome, to a humanitarian crisis. That is the difference. And I wonder if perhaps Prince William is being used in a way by the West precisely because he is apolitical, precisely because there's no hidden agenda. If America says something, if Jordan says something, if the UK says something, it's coming from the political leaders, whereas Prince William is above that. It's exactly what we're discussing. But the fact that if he can be used to influence a ceasefire or some way for the slaughter to stop at this moment.
I just feel very strongly that we're living in cloud cuckoo land if people think that the Prince of Wales, the future monarch of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, releasing this statement is going to cause a sustainable ceasefire. I think people are mad if they think if Parliament votes on a permanent ceasefire in the Middle East that there is going to be a ceasefire. These things are not going to affect the outcome of the war. What's going to affect the outcome of the war
so you think,
is a diplomatic settlement.
You think I'm mad for saying that, but I think that actually the pressure...
It's virtue signalling, that's what it is.
No, it's not virtue signalling. It is a genuine desire to stop slaughter and suffering.
So how will this statement end the suffering?
Well, because it adds to the weight of the pressure from South Africa onwards to all around the world to say, look, this has got to stop. This killing has to stop.
OK, I just want to ask Daisy. Daisy, do you think it makes a difference that it's coming from Prince William rather than King Charles? I mean, do you think King Charles would have made this statement had he been better?
No, I think he absolutely wouldn't. And I think, in some ways, Albie's right. This is virtue signalling. But actually, what's wrong with signalling a bit of virtue? What's wrong with William saying that this is something that he cares deeply about and saying that, he's worth more than just cutting a ribbon on a Wednesday or a soggy Wednesday in Wigan, that actually he's caring about the big global issues that affect people. And we know that Charles did very similar things, but actually, albeit much more secretive, back in his day as the Prince of Wales. Those so-called spider memos and spider letters that were revealed in 2015 that he was busy writing in 2004. This was a series of letters, spider because his handwriting was spiderish, that he was sending to cabinet ministers and government members, complaining about all sorts of things, complaining about the burden on farmers, complaining that British troops abroad weren't getting the equipment and tanks that they deserved, complaining about herbal remedies. So, he did get involved in a much more direct way in some sort of political lobbying. Also think it's worth remembering that the Queen famously briefed a Sunday newspaper about apartheid against Mrs. Thatcher, saying that she was very uncomfortable with Margaret Thatcher not wanting to put sanctions against the South African regime for apartheid. And the Queen was very concerned that this could lead to social unrest in the UK and damage to the Commonwealth. So, all monarchs do get involved in things that they feel really passionately about, but they have to tread very, very carefully. The Queen also got involved, as we know, because David Cameron revealed it in the Scottish referendum campaign, that David Cameron, the Prime Minister at the time, was very concerned that the mood north of the border seemed to be going in the way of independence, and asked for something, even an eyebrow, to be raised by the Queen. And she did then make a sort of what looked like a casual remark about people have a very important decision to take on Thursday. I do hope they'll think about this carefully.
They will have to think it very carefully. I want to go back to calls. Jane from Hampshire, what's your views on Prince William's comments on the conflict in Gaza?
I think Prince William has every right to say what he said.
Do you think the Queen would have made those comments?
No, I don't. But I don't think she would have stopped him doing it. Okay. I think nobody wants to sit back and watch this slaughter. It's not a war, it's a slaughter. And any human being with any feelings would feel the same.
Well, in which case, Jane, why do you think the Queen wouldn't comment on it?
I think the same as King Charles wouldn't. They're in a different position.
But, so you think actually it's much better for William to make these sorts of comments than King Charles? Do you think they would have the same impact? Would they have had the same impact coming from Prince William?
Yes, I do, because I think Prince William is very loved. And I would think that Prince Charles has given his blessing for him to do so, personally.
Do you think they'll make any difference, really, when it comes to the conflict?
Well, let's hope so, because all these politicians are sitting on their backsides doing absolutely nothing while more are killed. Innocent people. They're trapped into an area where the only thing I can say about this Israeli boss is like Putin, except he's worse, because he's going in there and he's just slaughtering in hospitals and everywhere.
Certainly,
and
I think all the parties are sort of coming in line now with the similar sort of view, and nobody wants to see an invasion, a ground invasion into Rafah.
Taking them too long.
Jane, thank you very much for your call. Maureen from Bristol, I've just got so many calls coming in this. I want to get as many views as I can on air. Maureen, what's your thoughts on William's comments? Do you think they're timely?
I just think every human being on the planet should say something about this terrible conflict. Absolutely awful. It's terrible what's happened to the Jews. The Holocaust, and recently the Hamas taking the hostages. Yep. Absolutely appalling.
And there are still hostages, it's worth saying.
Two wrongs don't make a right.
This is the problem with war, isn't it? Is that there's going to be innocent people killed, and innocent people are being killed in their tens of thousands. So do you think it's right for William to speak out? I mean, historically,
yes, I do.
Even though the Queen may not have done it, do you like a modernised royal family?
Yes, they should. You know, something as appalling as this, if it saved a couple of people's lives, then, let them speak out.
Albie, what do you think?
It is not, in my opinion, the monarch's job to get involved in this sort of thing.
With respect,
Maureen.
Albie, he's not the monarch.
Nino, I didn't interrupt you, so please don't interrupt me. It is not the job of the monarch or the royal family representing the crown on the international stage to make interventions in this way in international affairs. We have politicians to do these jobs for us. It's the job of Lord Cameron to do this. It is the job of the Shadow Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, to do this. And I think they're doing a very good job advocating for a sustainable ceasefire. It's not the job of the constitutional monarch and the representatives of the constitutional monarch to get involved in politics.
But isn't the job of the royal family to use their soft power, and this is a way of using that soft power, is it not? Or would you like it to be less overt?
But look, ultimately, they are going to have to deal in the future with the monarchs of countries like Saudi Arabia,
with them all the time.
Yes, of course, but if they are seen to be taking sides on this, it could damage their soft power and limit their influence in the future.
Maureen, thank you very much for your call. Kellyanne from Kent, what's your view on this?
Hi, sorry, I'm a bit nervous. I just want to say how proud I am of Prince William. I'm so proud that he's come out. I think everyone else is scared of anti-Semitism. Everyone's scared to say anything.
Well,
I'm so proud of him to come out and actually stand up for these people that are being murdered.
Well,
I mean,
Kellyanne, just to be very clear on this, he is coming out against all the killing that is happening. That is on both sides.
Absolutely, and so am I.
I'm
I'm not on either side, and I think there are a lot of people, most people are not on either side. We are all about peace. Nobody wants to see anybody killed, especially not children blown up, and this is what we're dealing with. And I'm so proud that he's come out on both sides. You know, I'm not taking sides, and a lot of people don't take sides. Killing should not be happening on either side, and it needs to stop, and I'm so proud of him, and I'm sure his nan would be so proud of him to stand up and say what he's saying.
All right, Daisy, final comment from you. Are you surprised? Most of our viewers, most of the people that have called in have been quite pro-Prince William in these comments, so perhaps he's sort of hit the right mark on this one.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, partly because Prince William is the most popular royal by some margin. So for many people, he can do no wrong. But of course, you know, he still has to be very careful not to put a step constitutionally out of line. But Charles said when he took the throne, he said there were things that he was no longer going to be able to do constitutionally. And he made it very clear that he was looking to William to fulfill that role. And I think that's exactly what William's doing.
Interesting. Daisy McAndrew, thank you for joining us for that conversation. Thank you for all your calls as well. After the break, we're asking whether Labour should scrap the pension.